Okay, so here we are at the end of the semester. So this is the part where I don't get to teach you any more new stuff. This is all review. We've already seen all this stuff before. And even if there are moments where you're like, we learned that? I feel like I don't even remember that. Weirdly, your brain has a whole different category for, I've never actually seen that. And if you have actually seen it, like I know you have, you've seen everything in here from first semester. If it's a little vague at the beginning, it comes back way faster than if you had never learned it before. So even if you feel like you've never learned it before, your brain will be able to go, oh yeah, and repair some of those like broken pathways in your mind. And then it'll be like, oh yeah, I remember this now. Okay? So, we are going to pass back the unit test after we do a little bit of review today. So the Chapter 8 test that you just took yesterday, it was average. There are some people that'll love their score, and there's other people that won't like it at all. But, it's pretty normal. It's kind of a harder test, and we had a distribution where some people did great and some people did not. You'll know soon which was for you. So on your final exam, it's going to be worth 60 points. How does that compare with a normal test? Normal tests are worth 100. So that means that your final will count less than a normal test. Okay, so you see how that puts a little less pressure on the final? Okay, now could it still affect your grade? Definitely. If you have an A going right now and you get a D on the final, it's going to drop you. It'll probably drop you to an A- or something like that. But if you have an A going and then you get like a B on the final, it's probably not going to be enough to drop you. All right. But if you get a bad score on the final, it will hurt anybody's grade. Of course, if you've got a C going in here right now and then you get just a little lower than that, like a D on the final, it actually probably wouldn't drop your grade much. So it all depends. This is how this works math-wise. It all depends on what you've got going. If you have a high score going, you have to have a high score on the final to keep it. It just kind of makes sense. Unless you have a huge pad of, like, some of you guys are seriously at like a 97%. If you have a 97% right now, then you could probably get a C- in the final and still maintain a 92.5, which is all you really need to get a straight A in this class. Okay, so if you're one of these kids that's got this huge extra padding on your score, you might be like, yeah, but I want to end with a 97%. Did you know that colleges can't see what grade you got in this class? What percent you got in this class? They're just going to see the grade. So a kid who gets a 92.5 and a kid who gets a 97, it's identical in the grade book. Okay, so there's no reason to be like grubbing for points like, I need a 96, I had a 96. It doesn't matter. If you got a 92.5, it'll look exactly the same as the kid who got the 97. The colleges cannot see what percent you had. They can only see the letter grade. Now, if you drop below a 92.5 and you get like a 91.5 or something, now you're in A- territory, and they can definitely see the difference between an A- and an A, but they can't tell if you're in that high grade. And a lot of times my super perfectionists, you're up in here and you're like, but I want to keep a super high grade. It doesn't matter. Here to here, same exact score. Okay, so 60 points, less than a normal test. 20 questions, just 20 questions, okay? And our normal tests in here typically are about 12. 8 easy ones, 4 hard ones. Okay, so this one's got 20 questions, but they're all R2s. That means no super hard finals questions. But that doesn't mean it'll be easy, because you got to remember a lot of easy stuff. But if we took all your previous tests, and you know how the first ones were all pretty easy, the R2s? Almost everybody gets 6 out of 8 of those. And we just like snipped out all the R3s and just threw them in the trash, and none of those will be on your test. You won't have any of the hard questions on your final. Okay, so I hope I'm lowering your level of concern a little bit. The final's not going to be incredibly hard, and it's not going to count incredibly much. So why should you even care? Well, one thing is all this stuff we use from first semester, you got to use it in second semester. So like, we're going to do this stuff And we're going to kind of go, well, we learned that in first semester. So like you do want to know all of the things, all 20 questions. You want to know these things because we use them again and then build on that in second semester. So all these things are important, but they weren't the hard questions. They were the easier ones. All right, and a calculator will be allowed on the final. All right, let's talk about when the actual final happens. So I think you guys know it's next week, and Monday and Tuesday are normal days, right? Except Monday and Tuesday are, I believe they're masked days, aren't they? Okay. So you'll meet with every class, and you won't have any finals in there. But you can come in the morning on both days if you want extra help in math. You could show up on Monday or Tuesday before school for math. But it's specifically during math time, not before math. You could come to math Monday or Tuesday. Then Wednesday, this class, you won't even have this class at all Wednesday. Because as you can see, your period 6 isn't in there. You guys are in period 6, so you'll be taking it. What? Oh, period 5, my bad. I keep thinking it's the end of the day because this is the end of the day for me. Yeah, it's my last class. All right, so anyway, we have the yucky period 5 / lunch, which basically means math specifically has been given second lunch, which basically means this class for our final, along with world language and business, we have the split lunch like we always do. So we got to divide your final into 2 parts. Okay, so we'll have problems 1 through 10, and then we'll go to lunch, and then we'll have problems 11 through 20 after lunch. Okay, so we have a split, and we just got unlucky on that one. English and science don't have a split, and art and computer science and facts and music and FIAD and social studies, they don't have a split. And only math, world language, special ed, and business got a split lunch. But I guess we're kind of used to a split lunch in this class, so it's not that big of a deal. But normally, we stay through. We can't do that on that day. They're just not possible to do that. Okay. So, any more questions about kind of how next week's going to go? Okay. So then we basically have review today and tomorrow and Monday and Tuesday. So we got 4 days of review. So we don't have to cover everything today. We'll just cover some of it. The very first unit we had was basically doing things in the right order. And you'd be surprised. You look back at some of these and you'll be like, oh my gosh, that's so easy. You can't believe we started with stuff that was so easy. But do you get how kids could still easily make a mistake in here and go do the 5 plus 3? Why don't you do the 5 plus 3? That's not the right order. It's got to be parentheses first, but there aren't any parentheses. Exponents, oh, there's an exponent. Then multiply and divide, I'm doing them in a different color. And add and subtract, I'm doing them in a different color because these two are tied. Multiply and divide, you don't just always do multiply first. These are tied. So what if you have 2 of them? Well, you go left to right. And add and subtract are lasts, but what if you have 1 add and 1 subtract? Well, then you go left to right. All right. So I'd like you to actually do this one right here. Just figure out that one. What would it be? If you start with the parentheses, I guess there aren't any. Then you go to the exponents, then you do the add. Well, then there's a big fraction bar here. You know what this acts like? It acts like a parenthesis. And all of this is in a parenthesis. I don't know if you knew that, but it's true. All right, figure this one out. Zoom in on that problem, figure it out, get the answer. And the answer's a fraction unless it simplifies that. Okay, EJ, what did you get on the top?
5 plus 9,
14. Over, what did you get on the bottom, Ian G?
11.
All right. And 14/11 is your final answer. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Okay, good. So that's just a simple example of one of those. We had solving. This, again, feels really easy to me now, but the most common mistake on this kind of question was Kids forgot to distribute the negative. That's the big mistake here. But what if you have variables on both sides like this? You got a negative 8x and you got a positive 2x. I always say to get rid of the smaller one. And what's smaller? Negative 8x or positive 2x? Negative 8. So I would add 8x to both sides if I was... Actually, you could do either one, but I think it's easier to add 8x than to subtract 2x. Because if you subtract 2x, then you got negatives all over the place. If you do it this way, you get rid of your negative and this becomes positive. So get rid of the smaller one is a good guide there. All right, on this kind, who remembers how you could easily mess up the sign on a problem like this? What's the little tricky thing? Grace? We subtract 8 first. Let's just start with that. And then what? Negative 4 is less than or equal to negative 2x. I know you know that. Then what? Yeah, you divide by a negative, and therefore what? The sign flips. That's a very easy thing to forget. Okay, so final answer on this one is x. This is a less than sign, and this would be a 2. So it's kind of written backwards. 2 and the x. Can you switch this around? Yeah, I kind of like it if you switch it around because it makes my head hurt to have them backwards like that. But do you get the pointy end is pointing at the x? So I got to switch it around so it's like this. You get what I mean? If I reverse the numbers, then I got to reverse the sign. This had the pointy end pointing at the x. This still has the pointy end pointing at the x. Okay. All right, so we'll get through a little bit more before we get to lunch here. As you guys know, the class you hear the chairs for, their lunch is earlier than yours by just a smidge. All right, if you don't know that, it's true. We're not supposed to dismiss for a bit. So this one would be 14. Do you guys remember how to handle these absolute value thingies? Yes, there's going to be one positive and one negative, but what's positive and negative? The common mistake is to make the 11 positive and negative, and that's wrong. You go x plus 11 is positive 14, and x plus 11 is negative 14. Do you get it's because what's in here could either be 14 or negative 14? See, what's inside there is an absolute value, so that could either be 14 or negative 14. That's why we have to do it twice. And if you can't solve these super easy equations, you're probably going to fail the final anyway. So, all right. Move on. So here's our, a few questions. Let's just do these two, and then we're going to lunch. So everybody finish up these 2 questions on this page. Just those 2. So Amelia, tell me how to start number 1. 10 minus 8, which is 2. And then what do? You got this. Do you do the 4 minus 2 that's in the parenthesis, or do you do the 20 divided by the 4? Yes, because it's in the parenthesis, the 4 minus 2 is next. And so 4 minus 2 is 2. So we go 20 divided by 2. Final answer 10. How many of you had 10 for that first one? Excellent. Now this one. 45 is simple. But we go to the bottom. Carl, what do you think I should do first on number 2?
5 minus 4.
Which is?
1.
1 times 8?
8.
8 minus 3?
5.
And then I got a 45 over a 5. What's the final answer there?
9.
That's it. We'll pick this up after lunch. So we're back from lunch. We're on page 4 of 7. So just a few more pages. There's this one. Everybody turn to this page. It's blue. And this is just your basic equation that you need to solve. So first, start by distributing out the negative. Everybody try that one. And this side's just x minus 10. Then combine like terms. Like numbers go with numbers, variables go with variables. Then you'll have variables on both sides. Get rid of the smaller one. which in my opinion is the negative one, is smaller. Mallory, can you distribute out this negative for me and tell me what the right side looks like?
Negative 3x plus 2 plus 6.
Plus 2 plus 6. And then the like terms are the 2 and the 6, so plus 8. And then variables on both sides. Jack, which one do I get rid of? Yeah. Now, some kids would rather do the other one. That's fine. You could have subtracted x from both sides, but this is better because look, I got rid of my negative thing. And now I have a positive 4x. I got rid of one negative. By getting rid of the smaller variable, you have one less negative in your problem. Okay, now I'm adding 10 to both sides. 4x equals 18. Now, if you get stressed at that point, like, wait a minute, 4 times what equals 18? It's not working. We have fraction answers in this class. So 18/4, though, would need to be reduced. My favorite way would be go like this, 9 times 2 over 2 times 2. And that makes it obvious to anybody that those 2's would cancel. Okay, so I think that's the best way to reduce. Some of you were taught a different way where you do it in your head, but then you sometimes get confused and get them wrong. So this will lock it in. Anybody can change that into 9 times 2 and 2 times 2. So final answer is 9 over 2. All right, we're not even going to do this one. I'm just going to say that at some point you would divide by -4, and what would have to happen? Switch the sign. All right, moving on to this kind. Some kids split this right away and they get it wrong because you have to start by doing something else first. You can't add 7 to both sides. That doesn't work. Divide by 3 works. Once you get it down to just the absolute value bars, what you're really doing is the order of operations but in reverse. I want to talk about that for a second. PEMDAS, you all know that, but when you're solving equations, you're supposed to look, can I add or subtract anything from both sides first? And in this case, no, because that -7 is inside the parentheses. Those bars, they act like parentheses. So I've heard some people call this GEMDAS, G for grouping symbol. So we have to do those last. See, we're going up from the bottom up when you're solving an equation. So this is the parentheses. So did the multiply divide. See, we divided by 3. Now, is there any exponents? No. So then the last thing left, the G or the P, it's like a parenthesis. That's when you split it. Y minus 7 equals 4, and y minus 7 equals -4. Sorry that got messy. I'm going to clean it up. And then again, I know you know how to solve it from there. You just have to add 7 to both sides. Y equals 11. Add 7. This one's a little trickier because people will go, oops, -11. No, it's not. That one's 3. Some people confuse their adding of integers. Okay, and then this last one, you don't start by splitting it. Try to focus. You don't start by splitting this. What do you do first? Add 5. Okay, we need to get that door closed. Kennedy, can you shut the door over there, please? Absolute value of 5x equals, no, less than or equal 25. Now am I ready to split it? Definitely. But I got to split this into 2 things. 5x is less than or equal to 25, and I don't know if you remember this, 5x is greater or equal to -25. Did you catch what happened there? I switched the sign because I went from 25 to -25. It's like I multiplied by a negative. So I switched this sign around. And then I'm dividing by 5 on both sides, and I get x is less than or equal to 5, and x is greater than or equal to -5. And then it wanted me to graph it. I'm gonna make a new number line here. And I like to put my numbers on first and say the negative goes to the left of the positive one. Put an empty circle on both of them. Then you have to think, can this answer be equal to the -5? Can it be equal to the -5? Look close. Can it be equal to the -5? Yeah, it says or equal to. That part right there. So it can be -5, so you fill it in. Then can the answer be equal to 5? Yep. The bottom part of that says equal to 5. So here's the 5, and I fill it in. Then last but not least, I ask myself, which way should I shade for each of these? This one says less than the 5. That goes this way. This is the 5 right here. I go less than the 5. And then from the other side, it's bigger than the -5. So it goes this way. And then they kind of meet in the middle. So there's my final answer for the graph of this one. That one felt like the one that maybe we haven't done in the most time. Absolute values and then graphing them. That was on a test. I remember it. I know you had that before. But any part of that you want to ask about? We started by adding 5, then we had an absolute value, then we split it into 2 equations. Remembering to switch this sign around. Flipped it around because we made the 25 be -25, so we had to switch the sign. That was probably the thing that gets forgotten the most. All right, you've made it. So this is the part where I will hand back those tests, but you need to open up that other thing I had you download, which is like the 12-page packet. I was thinking about putting them on paper, and then I thought, you know what? This is a great example of a time we could save the environment a little bit by just having you do it on your iPad. Now, if any of you really hate the iPad and really want to do it on paper, print it off yourself at home. If you asked me nicely after class, I might even be able to get one printed for you. But if we can avoid printing them, then the other thing is you won't lose it in your backpack. You know what I mean? It'll be on your iPad. So I was debating it, but all right. So now that you got that worksheet out, I'm going to ask you to show me that you have got the worksheet out and you are started, because I believe that once you're started, it's like you're halfway done. Now, I'm not saying you're not actually halfway done, but it's so much different to have started it than to just know you have it somewhere. Okay, can you zoom in on the first problem for me? Just zoom in tight on problem 1 and turn it my way so I can see that you're all there on your iPad. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. So really getting there? Find the worksheet if you have trouble. The first problem says 2. I think that's different. Well, the first problem actually. So I need to set it down. Nope, that's not it. Wrong file. Find a different one. It looks like this. It'll look like that. Okay. There is 2 files in there, so I can see you getting confused. All right. Carl, can you read me number 1, please?
Yeah.
I know it's kind of a pain, but read it as careful as you can.
2 times 6 plus 3 squared plus 4.
Is there a fraction bar, or is that it?
That's it.
Okay, cool. All right. So, as you were thinking this through, Carl, what do you feel like should be done first? Did you just go from left to right?
No.
No. What's first?
3 squared.
Yep. So that gets done, and you put a 9 there. And I might even try to do one more thing before I rewrite it. I'm not like evil about having to rewrite every single step. If we're going to do one more thing, what would it be? The 6 plus 9, the 9 plus 4, or the 2 times 6? 2 times 6 is 12. Then I would rewrite it. If you try to do like 4 steps in your head, you will screw it up. 12 plus 9 plus 4. Now, when they're all add, it's super simple. But I'm warning you, if they're all minus, you got to be careful, because if you do it in the wrong order, then it'll mess it up. Adding, you can do in any order you want. But the best practice is just go left to right now. Okay, so 12 plus 9, 21. 21 plus 4, 25. Raise your hand if you had 25 for the first one. Excellent. Okay, so you are started. That's the right packet. I don't expect you to finish this packet today. Of course not. We got 4 days on this packet. So I would just try to get done with up through the problems that I talked you through. You know what I mean? Like the absolute value kind. Get done up through the absolute value kind. We will turn this in at the end. It will be worth points. Okay, in the formative, like you don't do it, you will get a 0 and it will hurt your grade right before you take the final. And that would be really dumb for like 3 reasons. 1, it hurts your grade immediately. 2, you're not studying at all for the final. So that 3, you will do worse on the final. Okay, so just do this homework and turn it in at the end. Okay, that's all I got for the video for today.